Well, Mr. Mayor, I would move that we approve the fee waiver for the two kids mountain bike Oak Ridge events organized by Goats and trips for Kids Cat.
I have a question.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilor Morrison, second by Councilor Stark, to approve the fee waiver for the kids mountain bike Oak Ridge events organized by Goats and trips for Kids Cat. No.
We were talking about before, basically like the 9,000, well, you RPMT fund or the RPMT fund, one of the funds, we're going to go into basically a kitty. So whenever somebody asks for a fee waiver, that fee can be paid out of that fund. This actually came from our committee.
Oh yeah.
And it hasn't come over here yet. But we were proposing that some of the money from one of those funds go into a kitty, and when somebody asks for a fee waiver, basically that kitty paid for the fee. That way the Parks and Recreation gets the money. We have to spend the money on something that has to go to tourism, and it's a win-win for everybody, I guess. So, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't give the kids believe me, I'm not saying the kids shouldn't get to use the park for free. I'm just saying that we have money in any fund, but we don't know what that fund was ever used for before, because we don't know where that money ever went to. We know there was like $9,000 every year that went into a kitty or went somewhere, and we proposed that it went into a kitty and paid for this kind of stuff. I think if we're going to vote on this, I think we ought to vote on that, or if we're not ready to yet. And that way the city can still get paid for its good.
This was, again, in the community services meeting 2 weeks ago. We were discussing this, and we talked about how many groups are coming before the city and we still have park maintenance to deal with. My suggestion to Eugene was, and this is what I think our suggestion should be for any group that comes, is to increase their grant requirement by the amount of fee, so that the city gets the park maintenance paid for and they get their waiver. So that's what we were proposing, or getting ready to propose to this committee or this group, was that this is how we can do this. So we're not out like for concerts in the park. Let them add $600 onto their grant that they asked for to help pay for that park maintenance, or for the kids' goats, or whatever uses the park. That they increase their grant requirement by that much, so that it's a win-win, like Wes said, for everybody.
Well, that's actually different.
No.
Eugene, can I represent Eugene?
Yes, you can, Eugene.
So, Councilor Coey and I had discussed this, just what he said about 10 days ago or so, but we had already submitted our grant request for these events and put together our budget for the year, and so I didn't really see, I thought this would be the direct way to do this for this year, but what you're saying makes sense to me.
Well, I would say,
and if there's a way that we could still apply for that grant, if that's how the city would like us to proceed, we could do that. But either way, we're just asking that that there's a way provided that we can use the Green Waters Park facility to provide a free mountain biking,
which we're all for,
event for kids.
I'm just saying that it seems to me we should allow them to increase their grant that's already in, that met the deadline, by the amount of this fee.
So you're talking about a one-time thing, and in the future people would put that automatically into their budget.
Correct. And that's something we're getting ready to make a proposal to this group about, is that whenever there's an event, they just add that into their amount of money that they're requesting.
What about groups that don't request guarantee funds?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the only place we
I'm worried that we're getting ahead of ourselves. We have a TRT RTMP advisory board in the works.
Correct.
It seems like that should be something that they should have some say in, and we're trying to start a rule 3/4 of the way through the process. When we've already given fee waivers to groups and they haven't had to request additional funds, and I'm just a little concerned that we're starting a rule a little too hard on.
We've got some
Done a
other
bunch
meetings.
of fee waivers for
Oh, yeah.
girls.
Can we,
Somebody wanna-
Ben?
So I actually wrote the grant for the Kids Day, and we wrote that grant based on the knowledge of what was published. And so what we're talking about is like changing the rules for the future, and I'm fine with that. Second is, this is for an event that doesn't have a grant for it because it falls before that grant window. We wrote a grant for this year's fall and next in 2014 spring event because that's a fiscal year issue. So one of these actually is not doesn't have a grant for it. And for our grants were fairly small. They were only 25% of the total budget. We could have easily expanded that and then paid it through that other fund. But when that system's enrolled, we'll gladly apply for those funds as well.
So your suggestion is we wait till the advisory committee comes about and then let them, that's part of the function of the advisory committee.
Well, I think that, I guess in part of the planning process, and we could set money aside in these particular money that's coming in, or RTMP or whatever, to use for this purpose here, so that it comes out of there and goes into the parks. But not in a year.
And I'm right on point with Councilor Fortune, because nothing says that we can't project out what's gonna be requested for fee waivers and set that aside. Because the TRT money can be used for beautification of your parks. So nothing says that, since this is pretty regular, nothing says that right off the top, we go 600 for concerts in the park, 200 for them, blah, 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 blah. Set that money aside, and yes, it goes into parks for beautification and maintenance. We could do that. Am I correct, Susan, on the beautification of parks and maintenance towards tourism?
It is, but that's separate from the fee waiver for the use.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, that's a way we're talking about the maintenance of the park,
you
right?
could put in like a contingency fund.
Right, for just that. Exactly, and use the TRT money to do it.
Okay.
The other thing that I would wonder is, what Councilor Slavin brought up is, what about other people that, on fee waiver for the use of the LAC and fee waivers for everything else, do the same thing for them?
Yeah, again, it's pretty regular. We pretty much have our regular group of folks, and we could forecast fairly easily within $50 to $100 on what we would need for the year. Yeah, I do believe you can do that.
I think it needs to be on a case-by-case thing, because not every one of these that come for fee waivers are going to promote tourism or have grants or anything. Some of these people come and it's more of it's something that's gonna help the community. Like when Karen has her dinner, we give her a fee waiver because she's providing food to a whole lot of people. But that's not gonna fit in the tourism thing for TM or RNT funds.
Yeah,
So
well,
I think, don't we have to just kind of do it on a,
No, but if I lived in Eugene, I heard she would give them free food, I'd come.
No, what he's saying is if we automatically take a percent, if I'm not mistaken, $2,500, let's say, out of that TRT money every year and put it into park maintenance. That's just a line item there that is there for.
that's what I'm talking. And then that allows us to give some of these fee waivers, if you've already got it set aside.
I don't agree with that.
To use the money.
Well, I mean, just have a line item of $2,500, because, you know, in the first place, it's like on the case of the bicycles. If you guys are getting a grant, and you can get grant money to give the city for it and not have to apply for the use of the parks, take the grant money and give it to the city, you know. But if you're doing something for kids and you aren't going to get a grant and you aren't having any money, then the city should pay for it. But we should take the money out of TNT or whatever and use it for it. Because if you're having a bicycle function here or any kind of function, we're having a day in the park, music in the park, people driving by stop off to see it. You know, if somebody would ever actually put anything on the radio saying, hey, they're having a day in the park and music in Oak Ridge, there would be people from Eugene come up here to do it. I've told people down there and they came up to do it. It's never been advertised around here, or it itself would be a draw. You know, there's a lot of things that we could do, and you know, maybe that should be a function of this money too. Is when something like that happens, we pay $50 to you know, the channel to advertise it for us or something. You know, I mean, I don't know. This could go on forever. But I do believe
No,
I do believe that the
I agree with
PRT
that function
should
also.
be in a pot, and when people come and ask us for to use the park for free, then we should just pay it for them out of that pot. And then it would be on a case by case basis, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, for all things. You know, it's a case by
Sounds
case.
good. But we still need to set aside a small amount, be it $1,500 or $2,000 to do that.
All right, I'm gonna cut this off. There's a council on the floor, a council on the floor. A motion on the floor before the council. Wait a second. So let's vote unless there's further discussion.
You cut it off.
I did, but I'm such a nice guy.
Counselor Baszler? Counselor Slavin?
Aye.
Counselor Bickerstaff?
Good.
Counselor Clark?
Aye.
Counselor Covey?
Aye.
Counselor Fortune?
All right.
Mayor Shorey?
Aye. Motion carries, and that is a motion not for the other stuff we were talking about, but for simply giving a waiver for the bed. And we want to add the other stuff, where we can do that at another time.
Your Honor, unless you want to go to police services and fire first, I did put discuss town hall meeting a little bit, but it sounds like we did that in the beginning, and so I don't know unless y'all wish to go there again, but it sounds like y'all covered it.
Well, we did already, we just mentioned that there were very many people there.
Can I make a comment on that?
Why don't we just go ahead and down through the agenda? Unless you want to move that up in the community services. Please go through that.
Councilor Mayor. Here's our quarterly staff review for you, as we try and do every month. Just a couple of things. I have received back a traffic survey study that was done on the first week. You know, I'll be presenting that at our next public safety meeting, so I can kind of explain it, and then we'll be able to give it the information to you in a very concise way. Two, we are still actively working on 6 different buildings in town that are clearly dangerous buildings. Progress is being made. Troy's working really hard on that. We've been taking advantage of the fire marshal and the building inspector. So I hope to see within the next few months some action taken to help beautify the town. And you know, get these burned out buildings and dangerous buildings, you know, down. So that's where we're at. And that's really about all I have.
Okay. Everybody? Emergency services.
Alright, my name's Tim Whitaker, and I'm going to be the interim fire chief for the next 3 to 4 months, and I see a lot of familiar faces in here. I've worked up here for about the last 8 years, and looking forward to serving the community and our department for the next 3 to 4 months while we're looking at hiring our new fire chief. As you guys can see on the quarterly report, we're up in our call volume, fairly significant increase in our stats. Last year, 2012, we've had the highest call volume in the last 4 to 5 years, and as you can see, 2013 we're projected at an even higher increase. So I don't know if people are enjoying our new ambulance more, or I'm not quite sure, but the good news is we have our 4th person on staff. We've got a safer grant that we received for over $600,000 that's increased our staffing capability. It's reducing our response time, increasing the amount of people that are on scene, increasing our EMTs within the community. So those are all just real good things. And the nice thing is, it's not good for the citizens, but it's good for our revenue. With an increase in call volume, we have an increase in revenue. So we're looking, from what Mr. Gomez has been telling me and teaching me with budgets, we might even be in the black this year as far as our revenue. We've got a lot of really positive things going on in the department. We're doing a lot of team building exercises. We're meeting weekly with our officers group and just really working organizationally on how we can improve our services to the community and within our department. So as far as the new ambulance goes, we've been having it going for about the last 2 months. I call it my Cadillac. It's a very, very nice ambulance, and I definitely appreciate the Secret Millionaire a lot for getting that. It's definitely helping with the infrastructure with the department. As many of you guys probably know, an ambulance or a fire engine is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace versus just a normal vehicle in the city. So having that as a stepping stone for getting where we need to be is vital. Our rescue that was out of service for quite a while is back in service, and so we have the full capabilities to respond to wrecks and stuff on the highways a little more safely and provide a better service for people within our ambulance service district. And I've been working closely with Mr. Gomez on the chief's job description and the officers group on what we want to see from our next chief, their qualifications, and try to hire the best person for the department and for the city to kind of continue the mission that we are working through right now. So other than that, I think the department's very healthy and doing quite well, and we're making every effort we can to continue to improve our service.
Great, thanks. Might add also that we've got some surplus equipment coming up in the near future that we're going to be getting rid of now at the fire department, I think, and replace a couple of vehicles and stuff.
We're doing a lot of cleanup on the grounds, and then we're probably going to surplus 4 to 5 of the vehicles that are not in use or not likely to be used, so that we don't have an increase in our maintenance costs, and we can really focus our maintenance budget on our responding vehicles.
Thank you. All righty, now we can go down.
One quick thing.
Yes, sir.
On the 27th at the fire department, I hope Tim and I have talked about it, but as we have done before, on Saturday, the 27th from 10 to 2, we'll be doing a drug take-back day again. And we collect usually 45 to 60 pounds of unused drugs, you know, that people have laying around. Yeah, it keeps them out of landfills and out of our river consumers. And
I have children's mouths from their grandmas.
so you have an auction after that? Or? Some of those drugs that come through, we can fund the police department. On the black market. And I'm glad to see them get off the streets because they're out of also the black market sales.
All right, great, thanks a lot. Now we can discuss the town hall meeting if anybody wants to discuss it any further.
I was just going to comment on what Ernie said earlier about the, our attendance the other night. And someone in the group made a comment about how, a year ago, a year and a half ago, the auditorium was packed full of people when there was a calamity amongst us. But now that things are righting and we need the help of the community to create this plan for the future of Oak Ridge, we had 20 people show up. And I just like to see that everybody continues to participate in the process that we're trying to achieve here.
It wasn't put out to the chamber. We could have done a massive email Maybe it needs to be put out on the water bill, something like that when it's planned, because I heard nothing about it.
Well, I had the wrong date anyhow, so. Hour late, so.
Yeah, you're right, Sandy, it wasn't well publicized, and that's probably our fault.
So are we gonna try out another one to get that one right?
There'll be one next month.
Okay.
May 9th, and we'll go ahead and get.
Let us
get you
know
something.
so we can put an email blast out.
May 9th.
Yeah, that's good, thank you very much.
Yes. We're gonna have to ask the school, so hopefully they don't have anything going on.
That,
It's on the website too.
Is that
It's in the
what-
paper.
I wonder if it would help, really, it's not that we
Gotta be a lot less people reading that paper now.
the next month's meeting is basically geared toward getting input for the strategic plan, whereas this one was just a plain old town hall meeting. We'd have to talk about what you want to talk about, but with some emphasis on the strategic plan.
Yeah, we just all need to partner together to get the word
Yeah.
out.
Sure.
The May 9th one is very important for citizens and groups, chamber
Is it going out
businesses.
the water bill?
There was a survey that went out in the water bill.
Yeah, we
We're
did.
actually collating those now to find out, to get them back to the facilitator.
Yeah, we do have enough time to put it in the water bill. Yeah, it's May 9th, so right. Yeah, we put it in the water bill.
I'll put it on the chamber website.
Thank you, appreciate that.
What time, Louis? What time is the meeting?
7 p.m.
7 at school.
Yeah, Ernie, Councilor Basil wanted to know if we could move it to a little earlier time.
I would say no, because you've got a lot of people that work in the valley and don't get off till 5. And if you have it much earlier than 7, they've got to drive back and not have time to have any dinner or anything. I think it's
Or drive too fast.
drive too fast.
Not
Wait,
really.
it could be
Yeah,
some
this will
money.
be
I
the
was gonna
auditorium at the
say.
school, if we can get the auditorium at the school.
He's heading home by 4.
All right, moving right along. Speaking of moving, I asked City Administrator Dave when we were going to be moving down to the WAC. We run into a few glitches down there. First it was a leaky roof, and then wiring had to be redone, and so we run into a few things that we hadn't anticipated. Now we're looking for some chairs and stuff to put down there. And so we're shooting for the second meeting in May.
Good.
Lynn's gonna finish the run tomorrow.
Okay. So hopefully nothing else will happen. We'll be doing it the second meeting in May.
That's the goal.
All right. Reports from boards and committees. Administration.
No report.
Community service.
We had a busy meeting. A lot of things being discussed, one of which you've already heard about as far as the fee waivers and stuff. First thing we dealt with was the traffic issue that we're still discussing, and we're coming back to you probably after the next meeting with some recommendations. There were many things that were discussed, some things that I think would actually be a huge benefit to Uptown. And part of this discussion we've been having about beautification. There was discussion on the RTMP and TRT monies. We did an edit of the contract, and one of the things we discussed was rather than make it specific to the chamber, was make it specific to anybody. And we changed some of the wording in there, so that again, that'll be coming out as well. Some of the things in there were timelines that we adjusted as far as when they were able to submit their monies, their grant proposals, and things like that. So there was just some wording that was changed. Again, we discussed the traffic, Amtrak. Gary gave me a thing there, which was catching me up to it. Working with Amtrak on station development, it's a 10-step process, and we're at step 3 right now, and that is waiting for, and so it's request from the city. Step 2 is feasibility analysis, state acceptance, profit and loss, site and track analysis, which Amtrak has done. Third is host railroad permission, which is where it is. It's sitting on UP's lap right now. We did hear from them a couple weeks ago about location as far as an aerial view and mile marker. FRA notification, which I have no idea what that is. Okay. Then a memorandum of understanding. Then you go into concept development, then funding and concurrence, agreements, leases, design, and then the launch. Gary and Pat Harmon have been spending a lot of time on, there's a ton of grants out there, but out of 100 grants, there's really probably only 5 that we qualify for, so they've been going through the process of winnowing that down, and thanks to them. We're getting ready to create also a newsletter that will go out to our politicians in DC and or in the state, the county, etc., to keep them abreast of what's going on. They're all favorable towards it and want to support however they can, but we need to keep it in front of them. So rather than bug them with a phone call every month or an email, we thought a quarterly newsletter to them via an email would be a good thing. It gets it in front of them, keeps it fresh. And that's some of the things we discussed.
Great, thank you.
Wait a minute.
Speaking of, go ahead.
Gary?
So, Union Pacific has very recently moved a lot of its equipment from the industrial park where they had space, and they moved it to the very location where the station would be. And I'm just wondering whether the council is aware of this, because it's like we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we tell Union Pacific, you can't put your equipment in the industrial park unless you pay us money. And so they turn around and what do they do with that equipment? They put it where we want them to have a station. And it seems counterproductive. And I think that you as a council ought to be aware of what Union Pacific seems to be doing and what they're saying by implication. If we can't put our equipment up there in the industrial park, we'll put it on property we own off of Commercial Street.
Did somebody tell them you couldn't put the equipment in?
I don't know. They moved it.
No, we asked them to pay us some money. It's been 7-8 months ago. And what they did is they said, we're going to park here for 30 days. Okay. 60, 90, 120. And so we asked, hey, you said 30 days, you've been here 4 months. And so, yes, we did ask them to pay some money. However, the timeline that it would take for us to do what we're doing here with Amtrak, I don't believe that's going to be an issue. Most of the folks parked on that side are the contractors doing the fiber. So that's not their normal crews. Okay, so those are just their additional crews, the contractors and the subs that have came in to do the fiber. So I don't believe it'll be an issue. They should be out of there. But you are correct. If they have other projects, they would probably want to park in there. So it's something to think about. You know, on our next ODAC meeting, we can talk about it and bring something to the council.
How much money would be generated by renting space in the industrial park Union Pacific versus how important is it to Oak Ridge to have an Amtrak station stop here? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just raising the question, and I'm wanting to alert you, the city council, that this seems to be counterproductive.
I think right now what you're seeing is a lot of equipment because of the amount of work they're doing in this area on the railroad, which of course is transient equipment, and they just move it all over the place when they're doing that kind of work, like that great big trencher, they're using it down the highway here to put in fiber and stuff. And once that's done, I'm sure that would go somewhere else. So, I think at this point in time, I wouldn't get myself all wound up about it because we're still talking quite a bit of time out in the future. Got plenty of time to talk with them, and if it's an issue at the point in time when it needs to be an issue, then we can talk to them then.
Do we have any idea what their time frame is on their fiber? This is all being because of laying fiber.
The last time I spoke to someone, I think he said 2 years, 2 to 3. So you're talking a while yet. Cause they're using this as a home base and they're moving a long ways with it. So, a couple of years.
You know, if they started up on the top and they're moving this direction, then
Right.
where are they?
They're down below